We welcome Gary Ferman of CaneSport.com. And Gary, your message boards. Wow. I mean, what do you say after something like that to the folks? I mean, they're in a situation where if Miami takes a knee against Georgia Tech, the clock is already below 40 seconds. If they take a knee on third down, they can just run it out. Georgia Tech has no timeouts. Instead, they run a play. There's a fumble. Georgia Tech scores in 2 plays. How do you recover from that if you're Mario Cristobal and the Canes?
Well, knowing Mario, he just goes back to work. I'm sure he was at the office about 4 a.m. on Sunday morning. But yeah, it was just a very strange sequence. You know, you have to believe that the subject of taking a knee came up somewhere on the sideline between the offensive coordinator Shannon Dawson, the offensive staff, Mario. But I will say this: as I've watched Mario Cristobal through the years, he is not a guy that believes in taking a knee. You could see that he believes in playing the football game till the final whistle, coaching his guys, maximizing every rep, taking every opportunity to get his football team better for what he might have been thinking. And I'm certainly not making an excuse because it was one of the greatest, blunders in Miami football history. But I'm guessing if he told Shannon Dawson to run the football, it was with these next 4 or 5 weeks of the season in mind, when they're going to be in some tough football games and they're going to have to play a full 4 quarters. That's the only rationale that I can come up with, because from a football sense, it just makes no sense, Andy.
Yeah, and it's happened before in his career. He had a situation at Oregon in the 2018 game against Stanford. Now, it wasn't exactly the same. There was a little bit more math to do in that one. But in this case, on that third down play, all they had to do was take the knee. I do sense, I think you may be right about philosophy. I do sense that last night might have provoked a change going forward. Here's Mario Cristobal immediately after the game.
And then at the end of the game, a chance to put it away. And should just tell him to take a knee, take a timeout right there, recalibrate, and just take a knee. And so gave him a chance, and they took advantage of it and scored.
And that may have been what was going on over the headset. Somebody may have been saying, hey, let's just take a timeout here, figure out where we're at, do the math on it, and when we do, we'll realize if we just take a knee, we're out of here. So do you think, Gary, that is jarring enough to maybe change a philosophy on something like that?
Listen, Mario is one of the more stubborn people that you'll ever meet in your life, but I don't think he's this stubborn. This has been a career-changing moment for him. Let's be honest. Fair or unfair, however you want to classify it, he's getting undressed all over the country in every form of media over what happened in that game. Look at the ramifications. You're talking about having his 5-7 Miami team of a year ago in a position to be 5-0 going into a primetime nationally televised game at North Carolina next weekend. One of the top handful of games in the college football spectrum next week. So this was devastating. This is not something you recover from. They talk about a 24-hour rule. Andy, there's no 24-hour rule at Miami. They may pretend there is. They got a big game next week. This is not something you recover from in a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month. This is going to linger with Mario Cristobal for a very long time, and I think you're onto something that we will probably see a philosophical change from him in the future.
So the other part with Miami is, if you look at the ACC schedules, because that was the big topic of conversation after Louisville beat Notre Dame last night, is, look at who they have left to play in the league. It's not Duke's their toughest ACC game they have left. Florida State's got to play Miami, but Miami's got to play everybody. Miami's got to play Louisville, North Carolina, Clemson, right? And so I think that's part of it, is you can't drop a game that you have in hand in the conference when you're trying to make the conference title game, and you have the toughest schedule of everybody.
Hey, and you want this to be a season of progress. Let's face it, this could go either way now. I mean, this is a football team. We're talking about Mario, the head coach. I'm not so much worried about Mario, the head coach, in terms of bouncing back, working hard, getting ready for games. But how about the psyche of the players? You know, to lose a game like that, and now they got to go through this gauntlet here in the next 5 weeks or so and play some very tough football games. And this is not a program that is held together very well in these situations in recent history. Now, there's been a lot of conversation, Andrew, about a change in culture, about a player-led football team. We've been hearing it almost on a daily basis down here in Miami. That is going to be put to the test here over the next month for Miami. How do they bounce back from this disappointment? If they bounce back well, then at the end of the season, this is just a blip on the screen. Nobody expected this team to go be in the football playoff at the end of the year.
Well, and the fan base, that's as quick a turn as I've ever seen from a fan base, because last week it was all in on Mario.
They don't waste time down here in the 305.
Oh, you go to your message board today, and it is hot board for the next coach. It is Mario is Ron Zook part 2. It is all of that. And I understand, because that's just one of the bigger gut punch losses that you'll ever see. But that's the other piece of that. He's got to win back the confidence of the constituents. But the quickest way to do that is go beat North Carolina.
Go beat North Carolina. Go beat Clemson. You know, get yourself back into this thing and show that you are having a season of progress that it looked like you were having. And I think a few weeks down the road, people will forget what happened at Hard Rock Stadium last night. But I don't think Mario Cristobal is going to forget anytime soon. I think that one stung pretty bad. You know, you could just look at him in that post game and tell that this one was hitting hard.
So the other piece of that, and this is that gets lost in the decision, is the defense did give up that touchdown, which is maybe as troubling as the decision. You know, for Lance Guidry, the defensive coordinator, what do you do to shore that up in this next week when you're about to go play Drake May?
Well, you know, they played at Temple, and they had a play where one of their cornerbacks, Corey Catch, made an interception on a 4th down play, 20 yards down the football field, where he should have just batted it down. And then they got a 15-yard penalty from one of their defensive players coming off the bench to celebrate on that play. They lost 35 yards on that play. And I said at the time, this is a major problem. Like, that is situational football. As a defensive football player, you must be on top of that situation. You must know to bat the ball down. And it was meaningless in that game. Well, we saw a complete situational football collapse down the stretch against Georgia Tech, including by an All-American safety who let the receiver get behind him for the winning touchdown. And so if I'm Lance Guidry and my defense played relatively well for most of that game last night, I'm spending a lot of time on situational football this week before I get on the plane to North Carolina, because that has shown up as one of the weaknesses of the defensive side of the ball right now at Miami. Guys just got to be more aware of the circumstances of a game and not give up plays like they gave up at the end of the game last night.
It also felt like a lot of the gains that they'd made on offense kind of got rolled back, because Georgia Tech was a defense that had been scored on quite a bit by Bowling Green in that upset win for Bowling Green the week earlier. And, you know, we were talking the first month of the season that Shannon Dawson has been a revelation in Miami, that this particular offense fits their skill set and their personnel very, very well. But it looked like it was stuck in mud for a lot of last night.
Yeah, and you know, Tyler Van Dyke's a very good quarterback, but where he has shown that he can have problems is when defenses kind of mix coverages on him and sit back in coverage. Middle Tennessee State did a great job of that last year in upsetting Miami, and I'm sure Georgia Tech obviously studied the full year of Miami film last year. So it looked like they had a game plan that was forcing Van Dyke to have patience, throw the ball underneath, and try to limit the shots that he could take down the field. Conversely, the offensive coordinator, Shannon Dawson, was calling a lot more inside run plays than we've ever seen him run maybe in his career. I mean, this is a guy that likes to attack, run up stats, go down the field. So you put those two together, and Miami was having a lot of empty drives and not scoring points. Van Dyke had 3 interceptions in the game, and Miami just never really seemed to be in any kind of rhythm offensively. And, that left Georgia Tech in the game for, well, I'm not going to call it a miracle ending because it wasn't a miracle, but for the ending that they were able to attain late in the fourth quarter.
Brent Key, the Georgia Tech coach, that was the crazy. He said it was like Will Ferrell in Old School, where he kind of blacked out for a second. He's trying to be nice. He's trying not to say anything about, like, I can't believe he didn't take a knee. But is that one of the, because you've covered Miami football for a long time, Gary. Is that the weirdest ending you've seen at a Miami game?
Since the Hell Flutie pass in 1984, it probably was. Yeah, a little bit
the Duke kickoff return, is that the only
that would qualify, certainly, that Duke play a few years back. But there weren't many, with the ramifications that this one had. There's a big difference between being 4-1 going to Carolina next week and trying to regather yourself and being 5-0 and being probably close to the top 10, top 12, and people are really starting to make Miami relevant again, which is what they're trying to accomplish. This is a big difference now. Now they're number 25 in the polls. They're reeling a little bit. They got to gather themselves, and there's a big question over what they will look like when they show up at North Carolina next week.
Yeah, and that's the thing is how do they bounce back? And you mentioned this has not been a situation that previous Miami teams have handled well. And I guess there's no real way to know because of transfer portal, because of the way that Mario has reshaped the roster. You don't know how this particular group of players is going to react.
Not at all. And, all we know is what we've been being told, which is that, very positive things as it pertains to the players and taking ownership of themselves and the team. Well, now they got to prove it. This is their first test to show that. And I'm sure that's going to be the rallying cry all week. In the football headquarters, that we are better than this. We are not going to let this fall apart like we did last year. And I'm sure, I would like to think that they are going to be a very motivated, prepared team when they get to Chapel Hill next Saturday. And that could be a really good football game because North Carolina is playing very well on offense right now. And, Lance Guidry is going to bring it defensively. He is not going to just let them sit back there and carve them up. It has the makings of a very entertaining primetime game on ABC next Saturday night, if Miami can pull itself together.
Well, and that's the thing. If they can, everything's still in front of them because the loss to Georgia Tech is not going to hurt them from a head-to-head standpoint. And they play all the other good teams. So if they were to beat them, they're still okay. But that's a big if when you got to play them all in fairly rapid succession.
Yeah, Carolina, then Clemson. You're going to have to go to Florida State. You do get Louisville at home, which hopefully will be a positive thing if it breaks well. But I think more than anything, Andy, they got to take one game at a time. This is not a built program yet. It's not a complete football team. Their depth is very tenuous. If they get injuries in the wrong places, they're in big trouble. I think they just got to take 1 week at a time and keep trying to get better and just see where it takes them. They can't really be worried about right now, December, for example.
And if there's less than 40 seconds left and it's not fourth down and the opponent has no timeouts, take a knee.
Take a knee, Mario. Absolutely.
The game's over. You can just go shake Brent Key's hand and you're done. Yeah, this might be enough because you're right. He is the type that is stubborn. That probably was his philosophy. We're going to keep on. But at this point, you don't need to worry about philosophy. Just win the game.
Just win the game.
Gary, thank you.
It's never over.
Exactly. Gary, thank you so much.
Anytime, Andy. Thank you for having me.